for your very interesting and inspiring message. It's now my pleasure to introduce our second keynote speaker, Reverend Yukiko Motoyoshi, who is a Kaikoshi minister with the Buddhist Churches of America. She was born in Hawaii to the late Reverend Yushu Motoyoshi and Mrs. Sonai Motoyoshi. Reverend Motoyoshi has served as a resident minister with both the Hongaji Mission of Hawaii and the Buddhist Churches of America. She is currently the resident minister of the Buddhist Church of Stockton here in California. Please welcome Reverend Motoyoshi.
Gomonshū-sama, Bishop, Minister, and fellow Nembutsu followers. Ohayo gozaimasu. I thought I'm going to speak first. It's wonderful speech by the Professor Toro. I'm ready to go home. It is terrifying for me to follow her. But, I'm very honored to be here today, but at the same time, I'm terrified to be here to share my personal experiences with you. Anyway, because you can tell I'm nervous. I was once told that the Japanese speaker starts speech with apology, and the Westerner or American speaker start with a joke. I think it was Mel Fayase on Belarari Hongaji told that. Although I am American citizen and have lived in the United States for a little over 50 years, I do not know any jokes. Yes, I have to admit it, I am a very not so colorful American. So I would like to start my talk with an apology. When I was asked to speak at this convention, my first answer was no. Here I must stress that this no was truly, truly loud. It was so loud that it pretty shook the entire office. I thought, why me? There are more qualified people than me. Sadly, the person who called me didn't take a no for the answer. Reluctantly, I agreed. He probably gave me the reason why I should be the speaker, but I was so traumatized that I erased that part of my conversation from my memory. So I'm standing here today with uncertainty and apprehension. I apologize to all of you here today who came to this convention expecting a grand speech you already had. I am sorry, but I am not the kind of person. I do not have any out of ordinary experiences or any special talent. In fact, I am just obscure, nameless, ordinary person. I'm afraid I cannot even fulfill 1/10, 100, or maybe 1,000 of your expectation. So, I'd like to apologize to you, every single one of you, that I only can share my appreciation of the Nembutsu as a very, very ordinary person. As I reflect on my life on the Nembutsu, I was so fortunate that I had encountered numerous people who guided me and nurtured me. I wish I could name all of them, but of course, if I do, then you'll be sitting there for several years. So today, I'd like to share with you two people who had a great impact in my life. One is my paternal grandmother, and other is my father. Excuse me. As I was growing up, I was constantly fighting with my inferiority complex. I felt I was the least talented and least intelligent person in a family. My father was a very talented and smart person. When he was growing up in Hawaii, he didn't study much, but he was able to skip grade not once, but twice. He couldn't read music note, however, by just listening, he could play the very song with harmonica or organ. He was also artistically talented. He used to draw many cartoon characters when I was young, and they all look like professional. Even though he just took a few lessons of sumie, Japanese brush painting, he could draw a beautiful bamboo on shikishi. He was also very athletic. He once told me that the district swimming tournament, he broke a junior high school butterfly record. He claimed his record wasn't broken for many years. He had a black belt in karate while Shorinji Kenpo. His record was breaking 18 kawana, or Japanese roof tile, with his bare hand. Now, I have to explain why these are out of ordinary accomplishment. When he was young, he was run over by sugar train on Kauai. He almost lost his right leg. During the World War II, Japanese military classified my father as Heishu, physically low-grade soldier. Because of his handicap, he was not drafted into Japanese military until the very end of the war, when Japanese military became desperate. My mother was also a very talented person. She was very skillful in crocheting, knitting, bunkashishu, sewing, both Japanese and Western style, sumie, art and craft, so on. As long as I remember, she was always putting her best effort into learning something. After she retired, she started to learn Japanese dancing. She attained the Natori certificate from Bando School of Classical Japanese Dancing at the age of 90. She is 102 years old today and still trying to improve her English. She was born in Hawaii, but she was still trying to learn English. Hawaii speak pidgin, but anyway. I apparently did not inherit any of my parents. My sister, well, she's the main cause of my inferior complex. My sister excels in everything. She's smart, musically, and artistically talented person. I recall an art contest when we are in elementary school. Whole school, that's the 2,000 students, went out for excursion for this contest. I finished my painting. I thought it was one of my best work. I look at my friends. I thought, mine isn't that bad. It looked much better than theirs. An arrogant child, wasn't I? My sister finished only 3/4 of her painting. Yet, it was her painting that got prize. I didn't get it, by the way. I also remember the time school decided to form a chorus group. Of course, I wasn't chosen, but my sister was. Throughout the school years, she was always one of the top students. Well, my grade was the middle or bottom half of the class. In addition to these, my sister is very pretty. She took my mother's gene. 6 years after we left Japan, my sister and I took a trip back. I met my former boyfriend. I was expecting a wonderful day with him. I even took a special dress for him. Well, most of the time, he was saying how beautiful my sister is. Can you imagine my ego? It was crushed into thousands and millions of pieces. She was 1 year younger than me, yet at school, I was known as Yukiko's sister. Ordinarily, this kind of environment could crush any ego or person and send him or her into deep depression. Fortunately, I had my father and my grandmother who made me special, especially my grandmother. For a long time, I was my grandmother's favorite grandchild, the favorite grandchild. One of the reasons I believe is that I look just like my father. There are only 3 people in this entire world who think he's handsome. Himself, his wife, and his mother. Throughout his life, my father caused so much headache to the Motoyoshi family, yet my grandmother always came to rescue. Because my father was eldest son, my grandmother really treated him special. When I was baby, I looked exactly like my father. How could my grandmother reject me? Another reason why she treated me so special was because she had great sympathy or pity towards me. My sister excelled in every field while I couldn't. My grandmother embraced me just as I was. If you know there is someone who can accept you just as you are, you feel secure. My existence, how insignificant might have been, was affirmed by my grandmother. When you're growing up, it is just not cool to listen to the adult, but because of such special relationship between my grandmother and me, I was more receptive to her. She taught me the basic teaching of Buddhism like cause and effect and interdependence. She always said there are 6 Buddhas in 1 grain of rice. It means that countless living and non-living beings were needed for me to consume 1 grain of rice. It was a lesson on the interdependent nature of all things. And every morning I had to mop the hallway to the temple. When I complained, my grandmother said, to have something, you must work hard. Doing nothing leads to having nothing. It was a lesson on the principle of cause and effect. It was indeed introduction to Buddhism, level 1. Another person who gave me confidence was my father. He made sure that I was aware of our family heritage. He always told me, you are of Motoyoshi family, or you are the grandchild of Kozenji. Kozenji is the name of a temple in Fukui. I am still not quite sure why Motoyoshi or Kozenji is special, but he gave me the great sense of belonging to something or someone. He gave me a feeling of I am not alone. Of course, I'm not saying that my mother, my sister, relative, and friends were mean or had ignored me. I must say I was born into the very loving family and received countless kindness from others. I'm just saying that my grandmother and my father had a great part in my life in helping me to alleviate the pain of living with an inferiority complex. To truly overcome my inferiority complex, I needed the language, but this I will share with you a little later. Although I was born into the temple family, my exposure to Buddhism was very limited. My father constantly reminded me that I am Buddhist. We never had Christmas tree at home. And my sister and I were discouraged from attending Shinto shrine festival. He simply said, "Aren't you Buddhist?" That was it. Besides occasional service at our house, New Year's Day, for example, I did not attend any Buddhist services at temple or had never heard of Buddhist sermon while we were in Japan. Everything changed when we moved back to Hawaii. We lived on a temple ground. That means I couldn't sleep late on Sunday. There's no way to go. I did not have any choice but to attend Sunday services every single week, whether I like it or not. Not only that, because I understood Japanese, I was forced to attend Japanese special services. Did I enjoy it? You probably know the answer. Absolutely not. Therefore, when I graduated from high school and moved out of my parents' house, I stayed away from Buddhism. In fact, I was once anti-Buddhism. Every time I went back home for holidays or semester's break, I severely criticized Buddhism. Interestingly, my father didn't get angry or argue with me. However, I could see the sadness and concern on his face. 1 year before graduating from university, I had to go through another crisis called identity crisis. I was completely at loss. That's when the Buddhist teaching helped me to decide which path that I should take. Although I reluctantly attended service while I was living at home, the teaching was somehow seeping through into my mind. The teaching that I rejected for so long finally started to make sense. The Buddhist teaching enabled me to open my mind. I was able to see my surrounding and myself with a little clarity. The teaching enabled me to recognize the cause of my crisis. It was my own doing. It was I who pushed myself to the corner, or should I say, to the darkness, and clinged into it so tightly. I still remember the feeling of tremendous relief brought by this awareness. I was once told that we are born into the temple family because we are hopelessly burdened by karmic evil. The only path for such person to be saved is to be born into the temple environment. I think this is very true for me. If I wasn't born into the temple family, I don't think I would ever have become a Buddhist. And I knew my personality. I was a very lazy person, that I would not go to the temple unless I was put into the environment where I was forced to go. Well, I decided to become a minister. not because my father's minister, but for the sake of myself. If I become a minister, I have to go to church. Well, instead of going back to Japan first to study Buddhism, I chose to study Buddhism at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. My father advised me that in order to propagate the Nembutsu teaching in Hawaii, it will be very beneficial to study Buddhism in English first. When I enrolled at the University of Wisconsin, I again had to deal with the inferiority complex. I was surrounded by very, very smart students. They are all PhD candidates. I was only MA candidate. They all could read original Sanskrit, classical Chinese, classical Japanese texts with with ease. When they asked questions to professor, I couldn't even comprehend their questions. I felt I was so inadequate and insignificant among them. Then I met the Meditation Sutra, Kan Muryo Jukyo. The Meditation Sutra is one of the Jodo Shinshu Triple Sutra. This sutra is about Shakyamuni Buddha expounding the teaching of Amida Buddha to Queen Vaidehi, who was imprisoned by her own son, who killed her husband. This sutra's central teaching is the 16 practices of visualization of Amida Buddha, the Pure Land, and Bodhisattvas who accompany Amida Buddha. What caught my eyes was the later part of this sutra. According to this sutra, there are 3 types of grades of aspirant to be born into the Pure Land. And these 3 grades are further classified into 3 levels of birth. The beings of the highest level of the highest birth are those who practice Mahayana Buddhism, because they are able to attain 3 minds, that is sincerity, faith, and desire to be born into the Pure Land. With their own power, they will attain the birth in the Pure Land immediately. The beings of the lowest grade of the lowest birth are those who commit 5 or 10 offenses. Not to kill, not to steal, not to lie are some of the offenses that prevent one from attaining enlightenment. These beings are those who are not capable of practicing true Buddhist path. I was able to identify myself to such beings. I do lie, When someone apologized to me for doing something wrong to me, I would say, I'm a minister, so. Oh, I'm okay. Don't feel bad. It's just okay. However, in my mind, I'm saying something else. And I probably cannot reveal it to you. I may not steal material things from anyone, but I may steal dreams of others. I cannot exist without taking lives of others, and so on. The beings of the lowest grade of the lowest birth are hopeless beings. These beings are absent of true, sincere, and real mind. They are completely incapable of attaining enlightenment. Yet, they are not excluded from Amida Buddha's salvation. Even though they are not able to be mindful of Amida Buddha, they simply recite his name and will eventually be born into the Pure Land. Even the lowest of the lowest can be saved. This thought gave me great relief. It was like a glimpse of tiny but bright light in the midst of the darkness. Jodo Shinshu teaching is for such person, like me, a person of inadequacy and insignificance. Then I met Shinran Shonin's quote in Kyoryo Shinsho. Shinran Shonin described himself in a chapter of True Entrusting as follows. Truly I know, sad is it that I, Butokunan, sunk in a vast sea of lust and lost in a great mountain of desire for fame and profit. Do not rejoice in joining the group of rightly established state, nor do I enjoy coming near to the true enlightenment. What a shame, what a sorrow. When I read this quote for the first time, I was in total shock. To me, at least, Shinran Shonin was a great man, a perfect human being, a person awakened to the truth. Yes, at Sunday services or major services, I did hear some ministers mention that Shinran Shonin considered himself as the most wicked one. And I did read Tangisho. In it, Shinran Shonin put himself in hell as the only place for him. Yet, I had never looked at Shinran Shonin as a person of flesh and blood like me, much less having great passion. Even the great Shinran Shonin had ugliness within himself. It is okay for me to have that too. It was certainly not a well-thought or well-reflected thought. It was indeed self-serving affirmation of my ugliness. Even though it was very shallow understanding of Shinran Shonin's quote, it helped me greatly at the time of just coming out of identity crisis and having very low self-esteem. I am not alone. Others also have shadow, just like me. It gave me a strength to face my own inner shadow and to move forward and to study Buddhism. What I have learned at the University of Wisconsin is a basic Buddhism. Besides academic learning, I have learned the important characteristic of Buddhism. The professor repeatedly told me that Buddhism starts with I. Not this eye, but this eye. He said it is important for one who wishes to study Buddhism to have a question like, who am I? What am I? How do I exist? As you know, the fundamental teachings of Buddhism are impermanence, interdependence, non-self, and nirvana. These all become true when they become relative to our daily life. For example, we all know that everything changes. When the truth enables me to understand my life and guide me to live fuller and meaningful life, only then the truth becomes true and real. It is not how much you know, but it is how you live your life with the teaching. Let me further explain this through my own experience. When I lose someone who is very dear to me, I do shed tears. I do miss that person dearly, and it hurt me not to have a person near with me. Then I have to ask myself a question. Am I crying for him, or am I crying for myself? Most likely, answer will be, I am crying for myself. When I lose someone, I become upset and sad because my desire for my life to be permanent was denied. In other words, when I deeply look into my mind, it is for me that tear was shed. This awareness gives me more clarity of the world and myself. When I realize that impermanence is a fact of life and it is futile to cling to the world as permanent, I can accept the death of loved one just as it is, and I can move on to the next moment of my life. It is said that after Shakyamuni Buddha was awakened to the truth, he remained seated and enjoyed what he had attained. However, eventually, he stood up and expounded the teaching to others. I see quite significance in his action. The Buddhist teaching must not remain as a concept or just an enjoyable thought, but must be shared with others and implemented in our daily life. Buddhism is not truly Buddhism if it does not have any direct implication to our lives. Buddhism starts with me. Buddhism must be relevant to my daily life. With this direction, I returned to Japan to finally start Jodo Shinshu. Immediately, I hit the wall. I was not able to sincerely accept Amida Buddha nor sincerely recite the Nembutsu. Kyogyo Shinsho said, true and real Shinjin is unfailingly accompanied by saying the name. Saying the name, however, is not necessarily accompanied by Shinjin. That is the power of the vow. The Nembutsu without Shinjin is the Nembutsu of 19th and 20th vow, Nembutsu of self-power. It is not true and sincere Nembutsu. I couldn't recite the Nembutsu aloud because I knew I did not have Shinjin. That made one of my professors at Yukiko University very, very angry. How arrogant you are. Just recite the Nembutsu anyway. Well, I simply couldn't. He thought I was so stubborn and arrogant. It made him so frustrated that he went to International Center and complained to Bucho then. He felt I was not fit to be minister. He was so angry that he almost called the Bishop of Honpabunga Mission, Hawaii, to send me back. Well, even with his threat, I was just not able to recite the Nembutsu sincerely. Each time I recite the Nembutsu, I felt like I was fake or hypocrite. I felt my Nembutsu was empty and untrue. When I think back, it was I who was standing stubbornly and blocking the working of Amida Buddha. Well, regardless of what I felt, I had to finish my study in Japan and return to Hawaii as a minister. My struggle journey of the Nembutsu as a minister started in May 1978. Yes, I am old. However, I was extremely fortunate. I was surrounded by the ministers and members who are not only patient and kind, but also embraced me just as I was. Throughout my ministry, I was always surrounded by so many people who guided me and nurtured me. I owe them much gratitude. I would like to share with you one of the such person. One day, one of my friends, asked me why we must die. She was same age as me and was ill. I shared what I knew regarding the impermanence and compassion of Amida Buddha. I don't think she was convinced though. Why should she? As I was talking to her, I myself felt my words were just words, and did not carry any true meaning. I completely failed to relate the Buddhist teaching regarding fundamental issue of living and dying. I had to go back to Japan to restudy Jodo Shinshu. While I was in Japan studying, she passed away. Still today, I think of her. This person guided me to re-examine my understanding of the Nembutsu in this ever-changing world. She was one of my great bodhisattva who helped me to further appreciate the Nembutsu. Like her, many people I had met and the many circumstances I have encountered having given me more opportunity to reflect on Nembutsu teaching in my life. For this, I am truly grateful that I have received wonderful karma, not only to be born into the temple family, but to be a Jodo Shinshu minister. At the very beginning of my talk, I mentioned my inferiority complex. My grandmother and my father eased the pain of having such complex. Although they did not give a solution, they opened the path of the Nembutsu so that I can truly deal with my inferiority complex. When I was young, many people gave me advice on how to deal with my complex. Just don't dwell on it. Just forget about it. You should find a positive characteristic of yourself instead of contemplating on negative characteristic. But through years of listening Nembutsu, I started to understand that inferiority complex is not to be eliminated nor ignored, but to be revealed. The Nembutsu enable you to see yourself just as you are. Then you realize that inferior complex was created by none other than yourself. Here I'd like to share a quote by the late Reverend Jitsuen Kakehashi. The Reverend Kakehashi said, "Salvation of Tathagata," that is Amida Buddha, is not to forgive and eliminate our wrongs. It is to give us true wisdom to recognize our faults as our faults and give us courage and ability to take responsibility for what we have done. It is to transform our self-centered mind to feel pains of others and to wish for happiness of others. Some religious organizations promise their followers the elimination of all wrongs they have committed in the past, or they will be totally forgiven by praying or participating in some ritual. But Jodo Shinshu is not so. In Jodo Shinshu, no matter how many times or how hard you recite the Nembutsu, our wrongdoing will not be erased, or will they be forgiven by Amida Buddha. Jodo Shinshu, I strongly believe, is true to the Buddhist teaching. For example, we follow the principle of cause and effect. That is, we do not believe in some kind of being of having a supernatural power to erase our wrong action committed in the past. Although we see Amida Buddha in a form of a person at the altar, he is not a person. Shinran Shonin said Amida Buddha is a formless and colorless. Amida Buddha is a symbolic representation of the dynamic working of Tathata, the truth. It transcends limitation of forms and colors. Amida Buddha simply takes the form in order for us, the being of limitation, to appreciate the truth. Whatever we have done in the past, it will come back to us today or tomorrow. As a result, when we have ignored our past, then we'll most likely be startled, saddened, or become angry when the past comes back to us. Yes, whatever you have done in the past will not be erased by attending the temple, making the donation, or reciting the nebutsu. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. You have to go to the temple. You have to make the donation, especially the donation, and recite the nebutsu. What the nebutsu does is give us the wisdom to see ourselves truly as we are. So here I have to ask, what is my true I? The late Reverend Shinichi Hasede of Toyama writes in his book that there are 4 types of I. The first I is the I that I know. The second I is the I others know. The third I is the I that both I and others know. The fourth I is the I that both I and others do not know. The first I is the first I is the I that I perceive through my self-centeredness. That's how we perceive ourselves. And such I probably will not be shared with others. Are you waiting for me to share my I? I'm sorry, I will not. That's why I stay as the first I, that I only know. I think just if you look deeply in yourself, you probably have such part of you that don't want to share with anyone, and you only know, and you think that's yourself. And you probably take with you to the grave. Here, I must stress that this I is not true I, since it is perceived through my self-centeredness. The second I is the I that I will not know unless others share with me. Let me give you an example. When I was attending University of Hawaii, I worked at the university library as a student worker. I love working in a back room, but I didn't enjoy working at the circulation desk or returning book to the shelf. I was anti-people, by the way. Right before graduation, my sister told me that what other people were saying about me. They said they tried to avoid stopping at the circulation desk when I was sitting there. I was known as very unfriendly, bitchy, grouchy girl. I was totally shocked. I thought I covered my disliking of the circulation desk. But I thought I was courteous, I was efficient. We all have such I that we are just not aware of unless others point it out. The third I is the I that we both know. Such I can be good or bad, but known to both of us through our action. For example, when I drive a car, I can become impatient. Those who slow, especially slow, or unskillful drivers irritates me. I am a minister. I do not swear, but if I see the slow drivers, I probably say something else that I cannot reveal. But I'm a very impatient driver, and I know it, and those who have ridden in my car knows about it. The fourth I, the Reverend Hasede said, is the I that has been embraced by Amida Buddha. And this I is the object of Amida Buddha's salvation. This I most likely is not the eye that we sought. However, this eye was already grasped by Amida Buddha since the beginningless beginning, and will be revealed to us through the true wisdom light of Amida Buddha. Why is it so? Amida Buddha's wisdom light is totally and absolutely absent of self-centeredness. It is truly boundless, unhindered, and clear. Not a speck of doubt or self-serving calculation can be found in this wisdom light of Amida Buddha. When the sun illuminates the world, we see things clearly. But even the sun creates the shadow. The wisdom light of Amida Buddha penetrates even the thickest object and illuminates every single corner of the world. This light, the light of Amida Buddha, penetrates through our darkest and the thickest wall of self-centeredness. It reaches the deepest and darkest part of our mind. When the true I is revealed, we do need true courage and strength just to recognize it. Who would really find joy in looking at the most unpleasant thing? And if the most unpleasant thing is none other than myself, I have to be extremely brave to fix my eye on it. However, the Nembutsu also enables me to know that this very eye is the object of the Buddha's salvation. This thought, that is, even though I am such a terrible being, Amida Buddha does not forsake me, enable me to face the true self instead of turning away from it. It is not because Amida Buddha protects and shields us or me from the difficulty and pain, but Amida Buddha simply stays with me. Being a minister, I met people of all ages. When I meet very shy young children, I notice that they usually stand behind the parents and they stick their head and look at me. Of course, there were some children can bravely face me, but they all know or they are totally aware that their parents are somewhere near them. So when something goes wrong, they know their parents rush to them and protect them. Amida Buddha is not these parents. We are not like these children. I must stress that Amida Buddha is not a being who can shield or protect us from all things. Amida Buddha simply gives us the ability to recognize and accept the difficulties and pain just as they are. I believe many of you know the Japanese poet Misuzu Kaneko. Here I am not going into detail about her life or her work. I just wanted to share with you one of her poems, which is my favorite. It is called When I Am Lonely. Here goes. When I am lonely, nobody can tell. When I am lonely, my friends laugh. When I am lonely, my mother is kind. When I am lonely, Buddha is also lonely. Amida Buddha is not judgmental, critical, or prejudiced. Amida Buddha completely embraced one's pain and suffering. When Misuzu Kaneko said, Buddha is also lonely, I am certain that there was a feeling of warmth, relief, and strength. When we are able to accept pain just as it is, we become humble, kind, and empathetic to others. When I realize the true I, how can I be critical judgmental, or unkind to others. I am now taking care of my mother, who is 102. She's going to be 103 in coming November. Adding to her advanced age, she had severe stroke 5 years ago. Physically, she looked very good. She walked without cane or walker. She can change her clothes, wash her face, or eat without any assistance. However, her dementia is progressing rapidly. Someday, she cannot even recognize her own daughter, and she tried to get rid of me. Go back to your husband, that's what she tells me. And I said, what husband? And she asked me same thing over and over and over. If I didn't not meet the Nembutsu, I am not sure I'll be able to care for her. There was a lady who took care of her mother who had Alzheimer's. She said, do not drag her world to yours. Dragging my mother into my world is the working of self-centeredness. For example, my mother still asks me where my father is. I answer, he passed away 17 years ago. My mother sometimes said, what do you mean? I just saw him. You are lying. In her world, my father is still living. What right do I have to negate her world and force upon my own world? The Nembutsu enables me to see my self-centeredness and help me to refrain from correcting her. Of course, I'm not always patient and gentle to my mother. I do become angry, impatient, frustrated, and sad. I feel this way because she is my mother. Mother supposed to take care of the daughter. And it's so sad and frustrating to see your loved one deteriorating so fast. I have to confess, there's a lot of anger within me. I'm so ashamed of myself, but I do yell at her sometimes. Especially, I'm physically and mentally stressed from my work and house chore. But as soon as I yell at her, the Nembutsu pulls me down to the calm state of mind. The Nembutsu makes me aware of agitated state. I'm sorry, I keep hearing the thumb. Okay. I'm sorry. Nembutsu makes me aware of agitated state of my mind. Then the thought of repentance and regret arise. I am the one, or I am the cause of my own frustration and anger, not my mother. I become a little more patient with my mother, and I am ready to cope with another moment with my mother. Like my inferiority complex, the Nembutsu does not eliminate what I have done. It is simply, clearly, and truly makes me aware of the cause of my pain and suffering. That is my self-centeredness. Nembutsu gives me the courage and strength to face them and accept them just as they are. With that, I am able to take another step to the next moment with my mother. Life is a series of ups and downs, happiness, sadness, loneliness, despair, and so forth. Regardless of what we face in our life, we are responsible to make each moment of our life true and real. I know that I am a person who does not make right decisions all the time. I wish I could tell you, every moment of my life, the Nembutsu has guided me to make right decisions. Of course, there was just a few times in my life, Nembutsu did give me the clarity to make somewhat better decisions. but sadly, more often than I would like, I have been making self-centered decisions. However, I am truly grateful for the Nenbutsu, enabling me to see things with a little more clarity and giving me a direction to the path of sincerity. My life hasn't been a perfect, true, and sincere one. I will probably continue to make more mistakes. Yet, I am happy with my life because I have met the Nenbutsu. And yes, I still have inferiority complex. My sister is still better than me. And I look like my father. But that inferiority complex is no longer a hindrance in my life. With an Nenbutsu in my life, I'm taking a responsibility of my own life, and I'm trying to live this precious and valuable life the best way that I can. I thank you all to be so patient and listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Motoyoshi, for your most extraordinary message. You have nothing to apologize for. We received so much from your frank and heartfelt discussion. Reverend Motoyoshi and Keiko Toro were wonderful speakers, weren't they? Let's give them a Before we break for lunch, I have an important reminder that there are 2 ladies' washrooms located in the foyer across from this bar room, and there are more located on the Golden Gate level. The banquet this evening will be held in the same room. Please remember to wear your badges to dinner. Your assigned table number is on the back of your badge, and you will need this badge to get in or they won't let you in. Doors will open promptly at 6 p.m. When the doors open to the banquet room, we ask that you find your tables and be seated quickly. Now, who's hungry? Lunch is boxed. It's in a box. You may pick up your boxed lunch in the lobby area. There is no designated eating area or seating plan for lunch. You're welcome to eat in this room or anywhere in the convention area. Please turn in your lunch ticket, which is in your badge holder, to claim your boxed lunch. I would like to call upon Reverend Ronald Kabata to offer words before meal. Shokuzen no kotoba.
Well, since I'm American, I think I'll take the liberty of starting with a joke. I heard this joke at a banquet, the BCA, I think it was Dharma School Teachers Banquet. And Koichi Mizushima told me, he didn't know where it came from, but I thought it's such a wonderful joke. This isn't something you can translate maybe, but anyway. Okay, why did they fire the Buddhist medical examiner? Why did the Buddhist medical examiner get fired? Anyone ever hear this one? You started it? Oh, I've been asking, who created this wonderful joke? Why did they fire the Buddhist medical examiner? Because he or she kept writing on their death certificate, cause of death, birth. But because we were born, we eat. We need to eat. So with that, so this is the actual text. If we can join together in God's show. And the English translation of the Japanese that I'm going to conclude with goes, "We are truly grateful for this opportunity to receive this wonderful meal, thanks to all the many people and living beings that surround us who have made this occasion possible." And then with deep gratitude, we say, "Itadakimasu." So I'm going to conclude with this tradition that developed in Japan that our Shin Buddhist brothers and sisters recite before meals. As we proceed to receive the meal prepared for us, let us be mindful of the innumerable causes and conditions that sustain our life. The late Reverend Dr. Taitetsu Unno once shared the following reflection that he heard from his father. "No matter how wealthy, talented, influential we may become, we cannot create even a single grain of rice. It is a gift, and for this gift, may we be truly grateful." So let us together receive this lunch with this Japanese expression of gratitude. "Oku no inochi to shitobito no kage ni yori." 多くの命と人々の陰によりこのごちそうを恵まれました。深くご恩喜びありがたくいただきます。ナモアミダブス、ナモアミダブス。Let's eat.
Please remain seated. Don't get up yet. We have a few more announcements. So please sit quietly and listen carefully to the following important announcements. We understand that many felt cold during the keynotes. We apologize for your discomfort. We have adjusted the temperature settings in this hall. For those of you with headsets, please remove and keep the earbuds that you will need for tomorrow morning's closing service. We kindly ask that you leave your headset device on your chair before leaving the room for lunch. Please remain seated until directed by the ushers. The dignitaries will exit first. Following the dignitaries, you may leave. This concludes this morning's program. Again, please be seated until the dignitaries have left. Thank you.
すみませんがしばらくそのままお待ちください。お願いします。